Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star episode number 208 based on novel. So let's start. Your Majesty, where did you live back then? Dylan smiled and asked. There. Luo Feng pointed at a distant advanced city, Jiangnan Base, Yangzhou City, one of the 8 great cities. The name of this place is still the same, however it has completely changed. Yangzhou City, it was currently the most famous city on Earth. Just the population living there reached up to 20 million, plus the large amount of tourists, those searching for Luo Feng's history and the many worshippers. It made it extremely bustling. During the entire Earth's remodeling, Yangzhou City's status had already reached the level of Jiangnan Base. Yangzhou City, Luo Feng's old living quarters. Dylan, in a while, change your appearance a little. Luo Feng smiled as he looked at the black-robed bald man beside him. You are obviously not an Earth human looking like that, it would draw attention. Understood. Dylan nodded. Simultaneously his undying energy rippled and his facial features moved like water, quickly taking the form of a normal-looking yellow-skinned bald man, no different from the humans of Earth. Even his dressing changed to that of a casual night wear. Luo Feng and Dylan swiftly rushed downwards. The two didn't raise any of the city's security. Without a sound, they entered a pathway in Yangzhou City. This is the high school I studied at back then. This is the path I frequented. It still looks the same. There is where I used to live in, a rental place. As Luo Feng and Dylan walked, Luo Feng gazed at the memories from over 200 years ago. As a universe warrior, his memory was extremely good. He could even pull out memories of when he was an infant. It sure is bustling here. Dylan pointed at the distant spacious dojo of limits. That's where I trained. Luo Feng smiled. Back then I was one of the members. Your Majesty used to train there, and now you are the Milky Way leader. No wonder this dojo is so crowded. Dylan smiled and nodded. Luo Feng pointed at a not-too-distant restaurant. Let's go to that restaurant to eat. I didn't expect it to be here even after 200 years. Luo Feng put on sunglasses and walked with Dylan into the restaurant. After entering, Luo Feng and Dylan realized many had gathered within. It was noisy and crowded. The people of my home love to gather and chatter. Nothing's changed. Luo Feng smiled and walked to a corner to observe the happenings. It was a mess within. The plates and bowls on the table were broken. A fat yellow-haired youth had 4 black uniformed bodyguards. Another youth in training attire was blocking a girl. Fat Yang, don't use your background as a weapon. The youth in training attire rubbed the blood traces on his mouth, pointing angrily at the fat youth. Didn't you want to clear the place? Do that. Why pick trouble with me, Yang Shi? Why, you want to rely on your boss's bodyguards to cripple me? I've never picked on you. Who asked you to disrespect my boss? The fat youth laughed coldly. And you are still not leaving? He thought within, this Yang Shi actually improved so quickly. He withstood the boss's bodyguard attacks and was not crippled. The blood rushed from within the youth in the training uniform. He couldn't help but spit out some. Shi. The young lady behind quickly supported him. You okay? Relax, I'm fine. The youth snorted coldly, glancing at the yellow-haired fatty. If I hadn't just broken through, I would really have been crippled back then, HMPH. However, now that we are downstairs amidst such a huge crowd in Yangzhou City, that fatty is only an errand boy. He doesn't have the guts to mess things up. The yellow-haired fatty shouted coldly, Boss, I said to clean up the place. Why is this punk still here? The restaurant boss, a skinny youth, just smiled and walked out. Yang Huan. The girl behind the youth in training uniform pointed angrily at the fatty. My big brother will be here soon, don't get too cocky. Make way. A group of police became beams of lights as they swiftly parted the crowd. 10 of them swiftly took up the restaurant's important positions. Luo Feng, who was standing in the corner, couldn't help but smile. Police? The police on Earth now all seemed like war god level. Seems right, after all, the weakest level of humans on Earth was soldier level. Who dares make a mess? The leader of the police, a tall and sturdy man, gazed at the scene. Big brother. The lady looked like she saw her savior, shouted, Little sister. The man saw that his sister was unharmed, letting out a sigh of relief. However, after spotting the youth in training uniform pale and with traces of blood on his clothes, his expression changed. Brother Yang Shi, what's going on? Big brother, this fat Yang brought people here to clear the place for his boss. We naturally wouldn't mess with his boss, hence we were prepared to leave. However, he purposely couldn't let Yang Shi go and intentionally sought trouble, even allowing one of his bodyguards to attack him. Luckily, Yang Shi was knocked down to the first floor, with the crowd and people here, hence they didn't dare go further. If it were upstairs, I'm afraid. The lady's eyes had tears in them. The strong-looking man turned and stared at the yellow-haired fatty. The fatty, however, was all smiles. The 4 bodyguards behind were all smiling too. Captain Wang. The fatty smiled. Yang Huan, know your limits, this is Yangzhou City. If matters are blown up, no one can protect you. The man ordered. The fatty smiled. Right, this is Yangzhou City, Luo family's Yangzhou City. Not just Yangzhou City, the entire Milky Way is the Luo family's. Here, anybody who messes with the Luo family, no one can protect you. The group of policemen was silent. The leader of the policemen stared hard at the fatty, ordering softly, "Little sister, let's go." After which, he supported the youth in training uniform. The fatty smiled as he looked at the scene. In the corner of the restaurant, he seems to be connected to your family. Dylan smiled at Luo Feng. Luo Feng smiled too, seems so. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside. The large group of people gathered outside swiftly dodged as a powerful sound resounded. It's the ship of the genius of the Luo family. A 30 m diameter dark blue ship descended from above. As it came down, many black uniformed bodyguards swiftly jumped off and surrounded the restaurant. The boss is here. The fatty's expression changed as his hands became a blur, swiftly picking up all the broken plates and bowls and furniture. Hurry and clear the rubbish. The fatty ordered softly about. Immediately, the 4 black uniformed bodyguards behind him along with the group of staff swiftly picked up the rubbish, and in 10 short seconds, the entire restaurant was clear and empty. A new rug was put on, and at this time, the cabin door of the ship outside opened and a curly-haired fat youth walked out and landed. Behind him followed a purple-dressed voluptuous lady. Luo Yangjong glanced about. Many people outside the circle of guards looked on excitedly. That's the Luo family's genius, Master Luo Yangjong. It's Master Luo Yangjong. Look, his eyebrows are very similar to the leader Luo Feng. I came to Yangzhou City for holiday. It's the first time I'm seeing people of the Luo family. The crowd around was in an uproar. Luo Yangjong was very calm about the matter, as the family of the leader of the Milky Way, and because of Luo Feng, even the royalty of the Black Dragon Mountain Empire didn't dare disrespect the Luo family. And the surrounding basic-level universe civilizations all worshipped and highly respected the Luo family. Even though they didn't establish a royal family, however, in the eyes of the humans of Earth, the Milky Way leader Luo family was akin to royalty. As a family that was started from Luo Feng over 200 years ago, compared to those royal families more than 1 million years ago, Luo Feng's family members were much lesser compared to them. Just the males in the family alone only ranged in the hundreds. Hence, to actually see a member of the family was extremely rare. Nana, let's enter. Luo Yangjong smiled at the girl. I've always wanted to come here. I heard it's been here since before the Great Nirvana. The voluptuous girl said excitedly. Luo Yangjong smiled and nodded. The two entered side by side. Within the restaurant, the group of policemen hadn't had time to leave, hence they were still there. Master Luo. The policemen all bowed respectfully, including the captain. He too bowed respectfully willingly. Even though the Luo family was powerful, they never had any bad news about them, mostly just some small matters. After all, the legendary member of the family, the leader Luo Feng, had very strict requirements on his family. Luo Yangjong smiled and nodded. After which he gazed about the restaurant, frowning as he discovered the remains of a battle earlier within. Boss. The yellow-haired fatty ran over. Luo Yangjong had a hint of rage in his eyes, causing the fatty to force out a smile. Yang Huan was his classmate in school, plus they were both fat. Also he knew how to please and flatter people, hence they became friends. Luo Yangjong looked at the blood-stained youth in the training uniform, smiling. Yangshi, are you okay? No problem, Master Luo. The youth replied. Luo Yangjong nodded. Leave, all of you. He ordered. Immediately, the group of policemen, the youth in the training uniform, the girl and the other guest who hadn't left all walked away. Luo Yangjong had ordered them. They all felt like this was a very normal thing. Not discussing other matters, just his power alone was Star Traveler level. Within the restaurant, I told you last time to teach him a lesson, but you have to see the circumstance. Luo Yangjong shot a cold glance at the yellow-haired fatty, communicating, don't humiliate me when you do things, understand? Yes, boss. The yellow-haired fatty replied. Luo Yangjong suddenly stopped. His expression changed as he suddenly turned to look at the corner of the restaurant, his eyes revealing shock. He had just ordered and let everybody leave, and he felt as though everyone had already left. The two standing in the corner, he was a Star Traveler level and he didn't even realize they were there. almost like there were air. This punk is quite vicious. He looks one way but secretly acts another. In the universe, he'd survive quite long. However, he's pretty unlike you. Is he from the Luo family? Dylan asked. Yes, indeed he's from the Luo family. He's called Luo Yangjong, my 8th great-grandson. Luo Feng told Dylan. They noticed Luo Yangjong looking over. Only then did Luo Feng take off his sunglasses. His facial muscles moved slightly and looked right back at him. Luo Yangjong's expression went completely pale, sweat beading from his forehead. He was completely shocked. Luo Yangjong, Luo Feng's 8th great-grandchild. As a member of the Luo family, even in the Milky Way, and even the Black Dragon Mountain star field, that represented a very high status. However, no matter how high their position in the family was, to the legendary being that caused Earth's position to rise so much, Luo Feng, he was still but a small fry. Also, the Luo family rules were very strict. He definitely saw it, the family leader definitely saw it, definitely. Luo Yangjong sweat beaded from his forehead. He looked at this man who seemed normal, slightly taller than he was, his gaze piercing and making him shudder. This man before him was the man he worshipped, the leader of the Luo family, the legendary being of Earth. Luo Feng. Boss? The yellow-haired fatty shouted curiously. Yangjong. The lady beside also shouted beside him. Luo Yangjong stood before Luo Feng, filled with fear, not knowing what to say. He was only the 8th great-grandchild. There were many disciples under the family, plus with Luo Feng constantly immersed in training for many years, occasionally entering the virtual universe's Black Dragon Mountain 9-star bay, meeting the little generation that were out for a few decades. They had at most seen him 2 to 3 times. Like Luo Yangjong, he had only seen Luo Feng 3 times since birth. Luo Feng had only spoken to him once before. In his heart, the leader Luo Feng was an absolute being high above. The restaurant was completely silent. Everybody felt something was wrong, especially the black uniformed bodyguards that stood and stared curiously at the black-haired man in the corner. Why is he so like Luo Feng? Go home immediately. You don't need to mention me. They'll immediately forget they saw me. The black short-haired man glanced at Luo Yangjong. Yes. Luo Yangjong held his breath and replied respectfully. The others around saw that this genius master of the Luo family was acting all respectful. Hearing that cool Luo Feng-looking man say they'll immediately forget they saw me, they couldn't help but be filled with shock. Let's go. Yes, your majesty. The black short-haired man and the other bald, tall and skinny man vanished. Only Luo Yangjong and his group along with the staff in the restaurant with their boss were left there, and the initially shocked guards and staff all regained their composure immediately, almost like they never saw the 2 men. The leader truly has unbelievable power. Luo Yangjong looked at the looks of his underlings around, holding his breath. My conversation with Yang Huan earlier must have been picked up by him. What do I do? What do I do? Even though I knew that the leader would return within these 2 years, who'd have expected him to not return home immediately and come to this restaurant instead? Luo Yangjong was worried within. Boss, let's go and eat. The fatty said. Yangjong. The lady beside shouted too. Shut up. Luo Yangjong raged, scaring both the fatty and the girl. When one is inadequate, it would result in many failures. He looked coldly at the fatty and ordered, let's go back. Nana, you'll go back yourself. I have important matters. Yes. Even though the black uniformed men were curious as to why their master, who had initially come to eat, suddenly wanted to return. However, they all complied, supporting him back into the private ship and swiftly lifting off. Earth, Luo family. The Luo family had complete and absolute power, even though the Earth was still run by the Earth Union. But because the entire Milky Way was under the Luo family, naturally, their position was special. And the Earth Union was mainly made of the upper echelon of the 5 great countries. Yangju City, Luo Feng's old residence. At its outer rim were many groups of uniformed guards patrolling. The guards were all extremely proud, because it was simply too difficult to become a guard of the Luo family. Firstly, many of their guards were universe-star-level slaves the family purchased directly, and they were plentiful. Hence, the standards for the guards taken in from Earth were much higher. Even with the comrade status, the lowest requirement was a war god-level warrior. However, as long as they joined the Luo family, even if they entered as a war god, they would quickly reach Star Traveler level. Star Traveler level within the Luo family was very normal. Many of the masters have all returned recently. Right, even Lord Puyang, who was in the Chenjing Starfield, which is far from the Black Dragon Mountain Starfield, has returned. I heard he rushed in the dark universe in his ship for close to half a year. I heard Master Hai also gave up his universe mission and returned. The staff within the old residence were all discussing the Luo family, as a powerful family, had many of its disciples on other planets with very few remaining on Earth. However, recently, they all swiftly rushed back from everywhere. The staff all felt it was abnormal. Luo old residence, within its core was a quiet courtyard. This yard had a special position within the family, because this was where Luo Feng's brother Luo Hua lived. Within the courtyard. Big brother. Luo Hua. Luo Hua pushed the door and came out, looking at Luo Feng and Dylan who were standing in the yard. He couldn't help but shout out surprised. The two brothers hugged. It's been over 200 years since you appeared in reality. Luo Hua said as he smiled. It's been a while, the Earth's changed a lot. Luo Feng nodded at his brother. Over 200 years, his brother didn't seem like he aged at all, still with the youthfulness of a student. Where's Mom and Dad? Luo Feng asked. Do you need to ask? Of course they are battling in the virtual universe games. Luo Hua laughed. I don't know what's up with them, they actually became game addicts. Luckily they've been strengthened to universe level strength and mental capability, so they wouldn't mix up the virtual world with reality. Luo Feng shook his head and laughed. Of the entire Luo family, the most addicted to the virtual games were his parents. He had heard his dad say that during his escape back in the Great Nirvana, he had seen some paperback novels, and of which some were online too. Hence his parents were addicted to these virtual games. They had 100% simulation, and when the game time dragged for long periods, it made it hard for people to distinguish reality from the game. This was also why many rich disciples in the universe developed mental illnesses. However, Luo Feng had purely relied on resources to force his parents and little brother to the universe level. These sort of universe levels that purely relied on resources were enough to buy a small universe-level slave army. Of course, forcefully creating a few universe levels was nothing to Luo Feng. Big brother, you don't know, every time they see me, they get so excited about discussing the games, saying they are massacring in it and becoming some big bosses. Luo Hua shook his head and laughed. They even said their lives have been worth it. Playing the game makes them feel as though they are experiencing another life. 100% simulation, really exhilarating. Luo Feng laughed. As long as they are happy. Every virtual game goes for a few decades, it's like living an entire life. Luo Hua laughed. By spending some money, it makes it as though they've lived for 1,000 eras, playing many virtual games and experiencing many stories. Luo Feng nodded. Life was different. When his parents were young, the Earth was in chaos and they had to flee to escape and occasionally scrape some novels to read. During the many years of fleeing, they finally rooted in the base. However, they had to stay in a rental, working hard to care for them two brothers. Finally, when they reached over 40 and 50, only then did Luo Feng rise up. His parents could finally relax. Completing their dreams of their youth, playing games within the virtual universe, incomparably thrilling and fulfilling. Of course. To play so much, one required money and time. Humanity's stability in the universe, allowing so many normal people to enjoy it, this was all built on countless warriors protecting it. Dylan, who stood behind Luo Feng, said solemnly, the countless races in the universe, with some pinnacle races in war against each other, the weaker races become subordinates or form their own alliances, they all fight for their survival. Every second, humans die for humanity. If there was a day those great warriors all fall and humanity loses, those normal people won't be able to continue enjoying it like that. Luo Feng and Luo Hua were shocked. They nodded. Your Majesty, you have the makings of an absolute being. Dylan looked at Luo Feng. Even my teacher praises you, favors you. You will become one of the pillars supporting humanity. Luo Feng, Luo Feng. A silhouette entered the courtyard. Luo Feng turned and saw the long-haired Shushin. Honey. Luo Feng smiled sheepishly. The moment you come back you look for your brother. She snorted coldly. No, I scanned with my spirit energy earlier and you weren't home. Luo Feng smiled and walked over, quickly changing the subject. Right, when I came back, I saw that punk Luo Yangjong, the way he does things. You mean Yangjong? Shushin frowned with some rage. He is quite problematic. The family core is secretly collecting evidence on him. However, at least he hasn't done any huge grievous matters. Since you've brought it up, I'll immediately send him to the family court and accept his verdict and punishment. Managing a family, especially one that would continue on for 10,000 years, 1,000,000 years and even 1,000,000,000,000 years. It definitely couldn't rely on one person's judgment and decision, and Luo Feng didn't have the time to go manage the entire proceedings of the family, hence, they had to have family rules. And a family court. These few years, you haven't bothered about anything. Xu Xin stared at Luo Feng. About the family court, I'll give you a report. Over these many years, there have been 3 disciples sentenced to death, 37 punished, light and heavy. That Yang Zhongpeng is talented and improves fast, and his crimes aren't that heavy, plus he is still young. The verdict will probably at most punish him to a mineral planet for 3 to 10 years. Luo Feng nodded. The Luo family rules were much stricter than many of the larger families in the universe. After chatting with his wife for a while and seeing his 2 sons separately, the Luo family held a ceremony that night. The disciples of the Luo family all rushed back from around the universe. Evening, the gathering began. The hall was bustling with the disciples within. Greetings, leader. Over 2,000 people knelt down respectfully in the hall. Ha ha. Luo Feng sat in the main seat, smiling as he looked at the crowd below. These over 2,000 people were filled with both men and women. Over 200 years, it's been many generations. The youngest at the moment was the 11th generation grandchild. There were a total of over 500 men amongst the 2,000 below. The rest were women. Of course there were many more daughter-in-laws, granddaughter-in-laws, etc. Even though there were many in the family with only one spouse, the later generations, as they explored the universe more and gained more perspective, were influenced by other families, with many having many wives and even tens of them. The strong in the universe, those with power and status, usually had many wives. Of course. Those attending today's family meeting, the men only brought a max of 3 wives each, not daring to bring more. Get up, all of you. Luo Feng ordered. Yes, family leader. Over 2,000 people got up. Luo Feng looked at infants carried by their parents below. Many of them blinked and looked at him. Some of them had dark blue eyes. Obviously some were mixed blood. Xu Xin. Luo Feng said softly to his wife beside him, the later generations all seem to have more wives. The number of children are growing too. Xu Xin nodded. Like your 9th generation grandson Luo Kudai, he has 51 wives. A third of them are of Earth human bloodline. The rest are all from the other races in the universe. Of course they are still races close to that of the women of Earth. That is our family rule. He has 21 sons and 28 daughters. Luo Feng was speechless. Luo Kudai? Vicious. The family reputation is growing, and as the Luo family gets stronger, especially with you taking up the supervisor envoy position, being one of the 4 tycoons of the Ganwu universe country, many ancient races in the country would mix. Xu Xin said helplessly, these later generation kids have seen much and naturally influenced by them. Those huge families in the universe, some of them marry over 10,000 spouses and have over 10,000 children. Compared to them, our Luo family is still okay. Xu Xin said. Luo Feng was silent. This is a normal thing that happens when a family grows, and for the family to flourish, it indeed to be big, with bigger numbers, only then will the chances of elites be higher. Xu Xin smiled. Those ancient families in the universe, which of them doesn't have trillions of disciples? Just within the family alone, the number of sector lords, domain lords and universe levels are uncountable. Luo Feng forced a smile. If his later generations, every one of them married tens of wives and gave birth to tens of children, in 100 to 1,000 years, his family population would range in the trillions. The reason why humanity is strong, Dylan said beside him quietly, is because of its reproductivity strength. Its numbers are huge. Luo Feng turned to look at Dylan. Reproductivity? Tens of children? Why did it feel like a sow giving birth, having a group at a time? Mr. Dylan is right. Xu Xin smiled and nodded. For a family to become stronger, it cannot simply rely on one person. It requires large amounts of disciples. There's only over 500 men in the family. Compared to the ancient families in the universe, it's pitiful. All right. Luo Feng shook his head and smiled. His own generation, Luo Ping and Luo Hai. At least the earlier generations all mostly had one spouse, occasionally having 2 or 3. The later it got, especially the 6th generation grandchildren, 7th, it got more absurd. Right now Luo Kudai has tens of wives. I'm afraid the later generations will be even more absurd. Luo Feng laughed lightly and Xu Xin said beside him, eventually, it wouldn't even be strange if one comes up with thousands to tens of thousands of wives. Luo Kudai, Luo Kudai? Luo Hua, who sat beside Luo Feng, laughed. Brother, who came up with this name? It seems accurate. That punk's strength is average, yet he has so many wives and children, and he's still young. I've seen this punk. He has the brains for business. The family gave him 3 life planets as territory. He not only built a few palaces there, he's even built palaces in many places in the universe, nice places to keep his women. Having 51 wives at such a young age, I think in a few decades, it'll reach the hundreds or even thousands. Luo Kudii, Luo Kudii. Luo Hua shook his head. Just using the huge number of children he has, he can win over his enemies. It's an accurate name for him, a reminder to all. Shushin smiled. 51 wives is the reported number. According to the family report system, that Luo Kudii has another 62 he hasn't reported. Luo Feng and Luo Hua exchanged glances. Speechless? Genius. The undying Dylan laughed lightly beside. This gathering, Luo Feng played around with the infants. Of course the thing that shocked him the most was still Luo Kudii. Luo Feng had a feeling that if this went on, his family would grow extremely huge, of course compared to the Black Dragon Mountain Empire royal family or the Jisha family etc., the ancient families. Even if his family reached over 100 million, it wouldn't even be a fraction of the ancient families. After the ceremony, Luo Feng, Shushin, Luo Ping, and Luo Hai sat together as a family. Dad? Luo Hai asked, how long will you be back for this time? Little Hai, I'll stay pretty long on Earth this time. Luo Feng smiled and rubbed his son's head. Of the 2 sons, Luo Ping was more steady and grounded. Luo Hai, however, was more hot-blooded and was studying in the Gunwu dojo, exploring the universe. With the family's nurturing, he was already star level 8. How long is pretty long? Luo Hai asked. Luo Ping looked at his father too. If it's short, a few hundred years. If it's long, over 1,000 years to tens of thousands. Luo Feng smiled. The time I'm the supervisor envoy, I'll remain here in reality on Earth. Unless there's a special mission the virtual universe company sends occasionally, the rest of the time I'll be here. Ha ha, yay. Luo Hai cheered. Luo Ping and Luo Hai, the 2 brothers, bumped fists in celebration. Luo Feng and Shushin laughed at the scene. There were many disciples in the family. The 2 closest, however, were still their own sons. I won't be leaving to explore the universe these few years. Luo Hai shouted, I want to be on Earth. Ha ha, Dad, of your guard group, there's actually 10 sector lords and 100 domain lords. He, and even an undying. There'll be many to teach me in the future. Don't disturb Dylan if it isn't important. Once or twice is fine. Luo Feng ordered, and you are only a star level 8 punk. The 10 sector lords in my guard team are all recognized by the origin laws. All of them can easily give you pointers. Looking for them is enough. Luo Hai nodded. Understood, Dad. Sector lords recognized by the origin laws? Even if the entire Black Dragon Mountain star field put them together, there would only be so few. Shushin. Luo Feng looked at his wife. My plan is to buy a few advanced technological items from the virtual universe to remodel the Earth. Remodel Earth? Shushin, Luo Ping, and Luo Hai looked shocked at Luo Feng. Luo Feng nodded. Dylan. Luo Feng shouted, simultaneously communicating over 1 kilometer away into the house. Dylan appeared in mid-air. Your Majesty. Dylan shouted. Luo Ping, Luo Hai and Shushin immediately became serious. After all, this was an undying. Tell them my plans to remodel Earth. Luo Feng said. Dylan looked at Shushin and the 2 brothers. Your Majesty is true Yang Emperor's disciples, and you even made it into the primal region on your first time. You are definitely one of the top elites of the virtual universe company, and the company favors such a genius. Similarly, the other races in the universe would too. Shushin, Luo Ping, and Luo Hai were shocked. The universe isn't fair. War will always be there. Dylan said, the armies of the universe countries, large amounts of soldiers die every day. However, those are still mostly just cannon fodder. For an absolute genius like your Majesty, you are the true threat to those other races. With your talent, as long as you don't fall, it's set that you'd become at least an official level undying. There's even hope for you to become an emperor level undying. There's even a slight chance for you to become the mighty universe country leaders. To these absolute geniuses, humanity recognizes your importance. Naturally, the other races do too. What humanity recognizes is nurture, while what the other races, they have to kill them early. Dylan said. Shushin, Luo Ping and Luo Hai's expression changed. Dylan smiled. However, don't worry, the few elites the other races have hidden within humanity do not dare reveal themselves too easily. After all, hiding amongst us and not being discovered is an extremely hard thing to do. And also, the absolute geniuses aren't fully matured yet, and their position is at most similar to an official level undying. Dylan said, in truth, to break through that space technique surrounding Earth, one has to at least be an official level undying proficient in space techniques, and even so, these official level undyings wouldn't do it personally because doing that would reveal themselves, and within humanity's territory, they wouldn't be able to escape. Luo Feng nodded, hence you needn't be too worried. Shushin, Luo Ping, and Luo Hai nodded. To conceal themselves and enter is hard enough, and doing that with an official level undying. To these races, their value is akin to an emperor level undying that's not in our territory. Dylan smiled, they cannot bear to lose them. The stronger the being, the harder it is for them to enter human territory and hide. The moment they succeed, they all become important pawns, however we cannot get careless either. Assassination, there's many ways to do it, they can use poison or automaton weapons or some special methods. Dylan said, anyway, there's many ways to kill someone. Shushin and the two brothers were shocked. You can relax, during the time any supervisor envoy is sent out, if they cannot even be guaranteed safety in the planet they stay in, they would all be long gone. Dylan laughed, the virtual universe company already has a perfect remodeling plan for the planets the geniuses stay long-term in. It can at least guarantee that these planets will be completely safe when they are in them. Only when they leave and do the other missions, normally only then would they face danger. Luo Feng smiled, let's believe in the power of the virtual universe company. Right, how's the Bug Clan mother nest doing? Luo Feng asked. There were two important things he had to do on Earth, one was to remodel it and the second was the plan for the Bug Clan mother nest. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.